Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 257th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We have a ton to go. We got 46 people already with us. We are just full of stuff today. We're going to start with a report from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and also from Oregon if Melissa Bird is with us. We're then going to be joined by SUSIE Shannon and the great Andrea Miller. In this first hour, we're going to talk about the very, very serious issue of what is going to happen in the 2026 election. Steve Bannon has already announced that he's expecting ICE to be at every polling station in America. Think about that for a minute. At the same time, Trump is trying to eliminate voting by mail. And also SUSIE Shannon's going to give us an update when she arrives. Please let me know on the Democratic Party, at least in California, and what, if anything, they're thinking. So we have a huge deal going on, of course. And in the second hour, we're going to deal with the reality that Donald Trump is now the king of nuclear power. Donald Trump has single-handedly, with royal fiat, taken over the regulation of all atomic power plants in the United States. And on March 28th, as you may know, or what you will know now, it will be the third No Kings March around the United States. I'm guessing there will be more than 10 million people. And given the way karma and fate have worked, March 28th is also the 47th anniversary of the accident at 3 Mile Island. And so we have the incredible confluence of the issues of American democracy and atomic energy. And they are trying, these insane people, including the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania, are trying to restart the reactor at 3 Mile Island. So that's the second hour. We're going to take a deep dive also in the Palisades nuclear issue, which is a huge, huge deal. So we've got a ton to start. And we're going to start in Minnesota with the great HEDY TRIPP, whose kids are a couple blocks from the murders, the double murder sites of ICE in Minneapolis. HEDY, you're in St. Cloud. Do you want to get, and then we're going to go to SUSIE Shannon, Andrea Miller, and Melissa Bird if she's with us. HEDY, do you want to give us a on the ground report from the ICE Gestapo occupation of Minneapolis, Minnesota, please?
Sonny, Melissa is with us.
Okay, Melissa, if you'll follow briefly HEDY from Minneapolis with Minnesota with a report from Oregon, that would be wonderful. Melissa is a progressive candidate for the Congress in Oregon right now. Go ahead, HEDY, please.
Yes. Okay. This is HEDY TRIPP from St. Cloud, Minnesota. It's 70 miles from Minneapolis. We have weekly rallies here in St. Cloud. And yes, ICE is recognized as Gestapo. The latest update is that starting tomorrow, there's going to be a week-long in-person training session in Minneapolis to bring the heat to melt the ice. It's really amazingly being organized. It is going to be covering things on how to be a patroller, how to do rapid response, making it in infrastructure, legal observers, how do we train folks? Collective chemical weapons training, how do you attend memorials, and eviction defense and artists. So this is, again, an amazing action by just ordinary people in Minneapolis, training anybody who is interested. If folks are interested, I will put my email, but then you have to be in Minneapolis.
Well, here's a question, Eddie. Will these people, can they possibly Zoom it? Can they put it out on
Not
the
right
internet?
now. Not right now. They're not doing Zoom right now.
All
Hopefully
right.
that will happen. And but it's all in person. I think Zooming is, it adds a yeah. Anyway, not now.
Okay. And HEDY TRIPP, I want to introduce you and Melissa Bird to Andrea Miller. Andrea is the great guru here of election protection based in Virginia. and that you should all know each other. Melissa, I don't know if you've met Andrea before. Andrea, Melissa is running for Congress in Oregon. And so you people should be on each other's wavelengths here. Okay, Hetty, that's fantastic. If we can
I,
get, if you can persuade them to put it on the internet, it would be fantastic.
I think that'll come in at a later point, but right now it's important to have in person and on the safety issue. Anyway, yesterday I was able to go to the two memorials. You can see there on the to Renee Goods and Alex Brady's memorials. Um, the resistance sign in Minneapolis and in Minnesota is the loon, which is the state bird around the North Star. There are lots of poems. There are flowers. Fresh flowers are frozen, but there's plastic flowers. There's stuffed toys. Lots of poems and just such sweet things. Yeah, I'm going to very quickly do this poem. The poet did not sign their name on it, but I think it's really pretty amazing here.
Thank you. Thank you for
What
that.
can I
Okay.
do that, or is there time to do that, or
I
just
think we should hold, Hetty,
okay?
if we we'll come back to it later because I know Andrea and Melissa both are
Yeah.
a short time.
Okay,
Okay.
just very quickly, there's this fence that has a whole lot of portraits of folks that have been killed by law enforcement.
Uh,
And it was they attempted to burn, somebody attempted to burn it on the night of February 17th, but people came and put out the fire, and on the fence where it's blackened, there's a really beautiful picture of Renee as a multicultural angel. My point is that there is an amazing collective resistance in Minneapolis that I hope they'll be able to share that.
oh, and
Well,
I see the picture to the right, over the burn spot. Is that
yes,
what you're referring to?
correct. So
Wow. Amazing.
that's just my point. And I know folks on radio can't see it, but there is collective resistance, and ICE is still here.
And ice is still there. It's unreal.
Yeah,
Melissa Bird?
they've
Oh,
just
sorry,
shape
go ahead.
shifted. They've just shape shifted into smaller groups, and they're acting like slave hunters. Going to several places because the Metro Surge definitely has not worked in Minneapolis. Thank you.
Unbelievable. And your kids are right in the middle of it. Thank you, Hetty. We want you to keep reporting to us every week. And it was great to see you on Saturday with Mala Reesem and Jan and Ruth Strauss. Melissa Bird, do you have a report from us for us from Oregon? Melissa is a candidate for Congress in the state of Oregon. And definitely be in touch with Andrea Miller, Melissa. She's a real powerhouse.
I will. I will for sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Melissa Bird, and I'm a candidate for Congress in Oregon's 4th Congressional District Democratic primary. There's two things that I want to talk about. One actually has to do with the vote by mail issue. So, as many of you might know, we have motor voter here. So when anyone in Oregon gets a driver's license, we're automatically signed up for vote by mail. And Oregon as a state is a vote by mail state. And so we have been talking, and all of our ballots get processed through Portland now. So even if you take a ballot to the post office, it still is going to go through the machines in Portland. And one of the biggest concerns, of course, is that before election day, before the primary on May 19th, it's possible, that those machines could be shut down for maintenance. Anything could happen. And with the change in the rules with the post office, it used to be your ballot was counted based on the stamp from the post office, like the day you mailed it. But now it's being counted based on when it gets run through the machine. And so we are encouraging people in Oregon to vote early and get their ballots to the ballot box if they can. Of course, people with disabilities, our elders, people who live in rural areas, it's more difficult to get to the ballot box. So we are encouraging people to mail their ballots as early as possible when they come at the end of April, to make sure that their votes are counted here in Oregon. Um, We're looking very closely at what's going to happen with our ballots here in Oregon, and there's a lot of concern from the Secretary of State about our ballots being interfered with. So that is one thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, particularly if you're in Oregon or you know people in Oregon, make sure you vote early this year because of the changes in the rules that have happened with the post office. And there's one more thing I wanted to bring to people's attention that just happened this week. As many of you know, my opponent, the incumbent Representative Hoyle, um, supported and pushed the Fix Our Forests Act last year, which basically opened up our forest to old growth logging. The president announced this last week that the Trump administration is publishing a notice of proposed revisions for the BLM here in Oregon that covers the entire congressional district that I'm running in to maximize logging capacity, including old growth logging in the Sandy River and North Fork Clackamas areas, the Valley of the Giants, the redwoods that we all love, the Upper Molalla River, Mary's Peak, Crabtree Valley, and Alsea Falls. And this will be devastating for fire suppression because old growth forests prevent fire spread. And the incumbent that I'm running against specifically ran the bill to open up our forests for old growth logging.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Well, listen, let me segue what you said about voting in Oregon to Andrea Miller. Nobody knows more about voting than Andrea Miller. And you two should definitely be in touch. Andrea, do you want to comment on what Melissa said about the voting in Oregon?
Again, Oregon is, like you said, Melissa, a vote by mail state, which we have really not recommended vote by mail for several years because in the Southeast, we see all the games that people play with vote by mail. And now we are just seeing more and more. So it's one thing for us in the Southeast to encourage people to early vote in person because it's very prevalent and it's very available. In a state where historically it is all vote by mail, this is a huge problem.
So what are we recommending? Now, well, Trump and you're recommending, Trump's attacking vote, you're warning about it. And now Steve Bannon is announcing that ICE will be at the polls everywhere. You've got ICE all over Oregon. Is that right, Melissa?
We do, and it's it ratcheted up particularly in this district. And one of the things we're trying to fight, of course, is ICE putting in an ICE detention facility on the coast. We're still fighting that. They said they're not doing anything before May, so I'm not quite sure where it is. But I think the biggest thing that I want people in Oregon to remember is to vote early, and if they can, if they have the ability to do so, to get their ballots directly to their county elections offices. So to make sure that they're getting there. We don't have polling places, so that's not what happens here in Oregon. So there won't be an opportunity for ICE to go to a polling places because we don't have them. And so our biggest recommendation is that people get to the polling places as early as possible. And Andrea, I put my email in the chat. You can email me anytime, email the campaign anytime. I'm happy to connect with you. But I think it's important for people to remember our ballots hit the end of April. And you have to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican to vote in our primaries here in Oregon. They're not open to anyone who's not registered or affiliated. So if you are interested also in voting in the primary elections in Oregon, we are also recommending that people change their voter registration by April 1st so that they can vote in these primaries. They're very important primaries this year, particularly. So not only to change, to make sure you are registered as a voter if you want to vote in the primary, but also make sure you're getting your ballots in as early as possible. And if you know people who are elderly or disabled or live in rural areas and have a hard time getting there, making sure you're talking to your neighbors and your friends about how they can get their ballot in early.
Well, let me divert real quick. Hedy, you're still with us, I hope. What's happening with the elections in Minnesota? I assume if ICE is still there, they're going to be harassing people at the polls, right? Henny, if you're still with us, please unmute. Anyway, we've got 70 people with us. Andrea, Henny, if you back, come in, join us. Andrea, you have a presentation that you want to make. Please. Oh, there's Hetty. Hetty, what's happening with the elections in Minnesota?
Nothing that I know right now, but I've been warning the city council that that could happen. That's in
Yes.
South City Council.
I
Yeah,
mean, what happens when ICE turns up at the polling places in the primaries in Minnesota?
that's the whole point of ICE being there and to intimidate voters. But yeah,
Wow, what kind of country are we living in here?
yeah. And
Um,
ICE is here to stay. You know, they said 500 is left. I mean, 500 is 5 times more than the usual number that's usually here.
Unbelievable. All right, Andrea. And Hattie, you should be in touch with Andrea itself. Also, all the voting people in Minnesota, as well with Melissa in Oregon, should be in touch with Andrea. What's the name of your organization? Center for Common Ground, right, Andrea?
I work in the Southeast. While I do have a certain limited amount of information for other states, I work in the Southeast, Virginia, South, swing around through Texas. Again, Black voters, they are concentrated in the Southeast.
Right. Of course, Minnesota has a nuclear power plant called Monticello. So obviously that's where Thomas Jefferson used to live. Sorry about that. Couldn't resist. Anyway, but
Sonny, real
Andrea,
quick, Sonny. Melissa, did you have an announcement you wanted to make?
Oh, I have several. Yeah, you know what? I have an announcement that I was endorsed by Progressive Victory last week. And also, you're going to hear this first. Listen, I'm just going to say it out loud to all 74 of you. I have been endorsed by the Working Families Party of Oregon.
great.
We are waiting for the press release to come out, but I have been endorsed by Working Families Party of Oregon.
Good for
And
you.
of course, PDA Oregon and PDA National have endorsed you. So we're in good company.
Yeah.
These new
Congratulations.
organizations getting on the Melissa Bird train to victory.
Yes.
We are a nonprofit, so that's all off the record, but off the it's not official, but congratulations, and we look forward to your voter information campaign in Oregon to make sure people know how to vote. I mean, it's an interesting dilemma now. A whole state with vote by mail, and the president is trying to abolish vote by mail. So
Well,
basically, there won't be any balloting in Oregon, right?
yeah, I think it's really important. And also, I think with the, you're talking about all the nuclear power coming on board. We also are experiencing that in our district. Like we have nuclear power here at Oregon State University, and we also have the data centers. They are getting tax breaks like crazy here in Oregon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some critical things happening in Oregon that I really hope that people are paying attention to.
Absolutely. And this nuclear issue we're going to discuss in the second hour. We do have 78 people with us. Steve Caruso, and then we'll go to Andrea Miller for your presentation. Andrea, please. Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I really think Bannon's trying to stir the pot. You know how they operate. It's hard to believe that he would have enough ICE agents to cover every poll in the country. They barely have enough to do anything except terrorize people. So,
But
and
that's what they do.
acting outside of the Constitution. So, thanks.
All right. Well, Andrea, what do you think about that? What do you think about the role of ICE in the upcoming election? We now have 80 people with us. We've been joined by SUSIE Shannon, who I know you know, Andrea. So jump in, please. And then Susie's going to give us a report on what the Democrats have been doing with their state convention here in California. But go ahead, Andrea, please.
Well, I know Virginia right now with our new governor is very, very hostile to ICE. We have actually passed a bill, and the bill is crossed over where we say ICE cannot come into a Virginia court to take someone unless they have a judicial warrant. Otherwise, they will be arrested. So it's getting
Wait, you're saying
interesting in Virginia.
the ICE agents will be arrested?
Yes,
Do they
it's
have
a
sufficient,
crime. It will
do
be a crime. Yes.
you have sufficient refrigeration units for ICE or, sorry, I couldn't
I
resist.
know, but again, isn't it a sad state where when you say ice, you have to stop and think, do you mean ice, the refrigerator kind, or are we talking about the Gestapo thugs? Which ice are we talking about?
Well, that's why I doubly love the slogan "Ice out of Minnesota." I mean, I've spent some pretty cold nights in Minnesota, but go ahead. So, Andrea, what is the latest with you and Susie Shannon? Welcome to join us. Andrea, what's the latest on your voting protection campaigns?
You asked me to talk about the SAVE Act, so I brought that as
Yes,
a
the SAVE Act,
presentation.
which just
Yeah.
passed the House. The SAVE
Right.
Act
It,
just
it,
passed the
it's
House.
passed the House for the second time. They have no problem passing the House. The problem with the SAVE Act is number one, getting it passed in the Senate. And now there are actually three SAVE Act bills. So the one that passed the House was not, well, all right, the Safeguard American Voting Act that did pass the House earlier. The new version of the bill, the Save America Act, that passed, and that is now in the Senate. The dilemma in the Senate is, do they get rid of the filibuster? A lot of people are pressing for a blocking filibuster, which could very easily blow up in their faces because they need 60 votes to pass it in the Senate. And while they have 50 votes, they don't have 60. They would need 7 Democrats to cross and vote for it. So basically, hopefully, everybody has been following the SAVE Act. Is that in order to register to vote, you would have to have proof of citizenship. Now, remember, they just went through and made everybody go and get real ID so we could get on a domestic flight. Well, real ID in 45 states does not count as proof of citizenship. It's
Unbelievable.
just an enhanced driver's license. The problem with the SAVE Act is twofold. Number one, it's a huge problem for women who, when they got married, foolishly changed their names and took their husband's name because unless you married your cousin, generally your married name and your maiden name are not the same thing. So for a man, it's fairly easy in theory. All you have to do is come up with your birth certificate. For a woman, we need a bridge document. We need a birth certificate. And since marriage licenses aren't considered safe documents, women end up needing a passport as their bridge document. Something that says, yes, we understand you were born with this name, and now due to marriage, you are going through life with this name, and here's your passport that says, yep, you're you. 69 million women in the United States that are married and change their names do not have passports. Now, here's the really crazy thing. This will impact more rural people theoretically than urban people. Number one, in a lot of our southern states, they're very red. Um, it will be an expense problem. Passport costs $160. It will also be an access problem. You have to be able to get your form online or go somewhere that processes passports. And in rural communities, those just don't really exist. You're going to have to travel. You're going to have to go to a larger city that's capable of doing a passport. You don't get a passport at the DMV. That's just not how that works. The other problem is for rural people in states like Arizona, probably to some degree, even in Oregon, where between where some people may live and where the voter registration office is, this could literally be a very big travel day. And I know where I live, a lot of our older people are no longer driving. And in rural areas, one of the things about rural areas is there is no public transportation. It's not like you're going to hop on Uber, go 125 miles to where the voter registration office is. Here's the other problem with the SAVE Act. You know how we run voter registration drives and people register to vote online? Well, if you have to provide proof of citizenship, you now are going to need to go to an office that is prepared to deal with and validate that your proof of citizenship is real and valid. So all these things just add to forcing people into expenses that they didn't really want. All right, now here's the kicker. States are supposed to be in charge of elections. So we really are looking at congressional overreach. The other issue that we are looking at is, should they manage to pass the SAVE Act? How many states, North Carolina already did this, are going to demand that everybody go and re-register to vote?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think Andrea, you're bringing up such critical issues, and I really want to hammer home on a couple of them. First of all, once you turn 18, voting is your right. And for people who live in poverty, the forcing people to get a passport, which is very expensive for many people, and then have to travel to get that passport, because it is not simply a matter of going to the post office anymore to get a passport. And for people who live in rural areas, I mean, Oregon is a great example of this. Getting to a place where you can get your documents in order, if you can even pay for a passport, is out of reach for many, many people. People with disabilities, our elders, people who don't have access to a vehicle, like on and on and on. This impacts so many people at so many different intersections. And I think it's really important for people to remember that. Also, let's just talk about Native and Indigenous communities for just a second. Why should they have to get a passport when they already are United States citizens? This is really critically important for us to think about. It's not just about married women. I mean, thank God I still have my maiden name because I've been divorced 3 times. But we like we've got to really think about how we are discriminating against multiple different intersections of people. This isn't just an attack on married women. This is an attack on people with disabilities. It's an attack on people of color. It's an attack on poor people, people who live in rural parts of our country. This is unconscionable. And Andrea, I just really want to say thank you so much for bringing up that elections is a local issue. If this is not government overreach, I don't know what is. This is insane.
Yeah,
That,
well,
that we
Andrea,
are not leaving this up to counties and states to decide is an abomination on our elections.
absolutely well said, Melissa. And I want to say that, there are MAGA people out there who are talking about repealing the 19th Amendment and taking the vote away from women. This is certainly one way to do it, right? You know, so Andrea, what are the realistic chances that this horrendous bill will actually get through the Senate?
And again, that's one of these crystal ball things. Do I really think that they're going to find 7 Democrats stupid enough who want to make career-ending votes? What am I saying? I'm saying Democrats. You never know what Democrats are going to do. But there is, they have tried so many ways to pass the Save Act. They tried passing it. They tried sneaking it through the Elections Assistance Commission. Now they're trying to use a hammer and pound it through the Senate. Trump was going to do an executive order, and the court said, no, don't even think about it. No. And again, every Democratic state would sue, and potentially some of the Republican ones would sue either. Also, because the federal government is trying to take over elections, and elections are run by states, not the federal government.
It's unreal. Susie Shannon, you were just at the Democratic Party convention here in California. Did this come up? As the Democratic Party in California responding to this?
This did not come up that I know of. I mean, we didn't really take up legislation. This was a platform convention, and the legislative committee didn't even meet at the convention.
Was there any discussion in the convention at all of voting rights and the presence of ICE in California?
Well, on the presence of ICE, yes. On voting rights, no.
Okay, so what did they say about the what did the California surprises here? There are 80 people with us. What did the California Democratic Party say about the presence of ICE in Los Angeles and elsewhere?
Well, yeah, and I think it's kind of everywhere that people want ICE out of our cities, that they obviously should not be attacking people, whether they're people who are undocumented, and, protesters. And, I think this is one area where specifically, the California Democratic Party, but I think in most Democratic state parties, there is at least a consensus that we want ICE out of our cities. I think on abolishing ICE, I think, probably folks are, 80% of the people probably would agree with that. I don't know if that would be like the consensus everywhere. But yeah, I think this is one area where the Democratic Party is actually, pretty unified. And our chair for the Democratic National Committee is actually from Minneapolis and lives in Minneapolis. And so he's been actually doing a lot of stuff. He's been on the ground, but also, putting out a lot of information about ICE and getting ICE out of the cities.
Well, let's swing back. What's his name, Andy? Do you know who's the chair of the Democratic National Committee?
Ken Martin.
Oh, and he's from Minneapolis?
Yep.
Okay. Well, in terms of the double-sided question, A, getting ICE out of our cities or out of our states, and B, getting ICE away from the polls, I'm sure that with Steve Bannon on the case, they will be very strategic with ICE in terms of where they're going to choose to send ICE agents. Andrea, that would certainly be Georgia and Virginia. Do you have other ideas? And Susie and Melissa, where they're going to send ICE agents if they're still available to come to terrorize people at the voting stations?
Number one, Virginia's got 45 days of early voting. So are they really going to put them there for 45 days? And Virginia is very ICE hostile at this point in time. We have legislation that says no agency that exists in Virginia, state or local, can have anything to do with ICE. Don't even think about it. No, you are not cooperating with ICE.
Do you have similar legislation, HEDY, in Minnesota?
They tried to put in some legislation, but ICE has and the department has been basically ignoring, legislation and ordinances and anything like that.
Does your legislation have teeth that says if they do it, they get arrested?
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen legislation from other states that basically say don't do this, but there's no teeth. There's no, this
No
is what
teeth, no teeth.
happens
Yeah,
if you do
absolutely
it.
no teeth.
So for the courthouse arrest, because we did have a problem with that in Chesterfield County, we wanted class 5 felony. All we got was class 1 misdemeanor, but I was like, okay, that's a start. So I'll go back next year for class 5 felony again.
Have any ICE agents actually been arrested in Virginia?
Not that I know of. No.
Not yet. Oregon, Melissa Byrd, is there any anti-ICE legislation on the books in Oregon, and have any ICE agents been arrested? And then Susie, I'll ask you.
Well, Sluggo, Melissa had to leave, but
Oh,
we'll
okay.
try to get her back on again in a few weeks or so.
All right, she was great. Susie, is there any substantial anti-ICE legislation in California that has any teeth in it?
I think that folks are working on it. The new session just started. So there is going to be a lot of, I think, really strong language. But look, the notion that the Trump administration cares about state law and isn't willing to break that law is another question, right? So the courts can rule, but you also have to have an administration that is going to have any kind of respect or care about that law. And so I'm guessing what we're going to see regarding the polls is that they will go into low income communities.
Yes.
Like if you've ever seen El Sereno here in Los Angeles, you know that at the polling places on election day, right? Because I mean, we have in California, automatic vote by mail. But at the polling places, like in El Sereno and a lot of the lower income communities here in Los Angeles, there are people lined up for blocks. And so for this particular election, right, for president, it's going to bring, a lot of people, I mean, in 2028, but also in the midterm, sorry, it's going to bring a lot of people out. And so they will go into communities of color, so it'll be like Pilsen in Chicago, it'll be El Sereno here, maybe South LA. They're not going to be like in Beverly Hills or Bel Air, any of the polling places for those areas. So, I mean, I think we see the communities that they targeted in Chicago. They went in on the south side, and they had to go in by helicopter because I think they were afraid of being on the streets, frankly. But I mean, I think we see that, it's great and we need to pass these laws at the state, but we have a pretty lawless administration. So the question is, what can you actually do about it? I mean, are we imagining that we're going to have, individual police officers who are fairly conservative as it is, fighting with ICE agents in low income communities? No.
Yeah,
So who's
in
going to enforce?
Virginia. Yeah.
You think so? Because I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, in LA, when these neo Nazis had this big rally downtown, we were doing like a counter protest. And when we were walking away, the police were high fiving the neo Nazis here. So I'm just saying, like, I don't know who's going to enforce this law if it passes in California, but I'm really glad to hear that that's the case in Virginia.
Wow, man. What a what a dialogue to be having in the United States of
Yeah.
America about federal agents turning up at voting stations, even in the Ku Klux Klan South. You did not have federal agents coming down to harass voters. It was actually the opposite. I want to tip my hat here to Ulysses S. Grant, who really hated the Klan and did, support it. And anyway, Hetty, go ahead.
They haven't arrested the men that killed Renee or Alex yet. We've identified them, but they've like disappeared. And these are people who have
Yeah.
killed, right?
Yes, it's horrifying, horrifying. Paul Johnson, real quick, and then Steve will go back to you, and then Lynn Finerman and Paul Newman.
Yeah, look, thanks for everybody joining. The ICE discussion is very interesting. I wanted to express my indignation and objection to government subsidies for companies building AI
Absolutely.
farms. This is bullshit. I mean, if that technology is so wonderful, have somebody else write the check, not the taxpayer. They do this over and over again. They're a bunch of grifters, and it needs to stop.
Paul,
Yeah.
Paul, will you stay on for the second hour? Because I think that AI and the data centers are a big scam. It's a billionaire BS, and they're using it as an excuse to build nuclear plants. So stick with us, Paul, for the second hour, and we'll
Okay,
come
I'll try
back
to hang
there.
on. I
I've
never
seen
thought of that. Could be.
I've seen yes, absolutely. And I've seen some of these big AI facilities, and they're giant one-story warehouses, and they don't have solar panels on the roof. And yet they're yelling at us to build them nuclear plants. It's sick. Stay on for the second hour. As you can see, Milo Reason's got the sign up. Steve Caruso, Lynn Finerman, Paul Newman, please.
Yeah, no aliens are voting. There is practically 0.000001% or whatever it is voting, or they're not even any. Really, it's the Republicans that get caught trying to steal elections. Then we had in Georgia, what happened there? Elon Musk got caught submitting 30,000 ballots. Is that right, Andrea? Into Georgia to get them through included in the vote.
Right.
Pre-filled ballots they sent to Georgia. So no aliens are voting, and we please ask the emperor to put his clothes back on. Thank you.
Or just disappear. That would be better, right? If the emperor just disappeared. Andrea, very quickly, we're going to Lynn Finerman, but what about this FBI raid on the voting center in Georgia? What's been the impact of that?
We will not have any idea. We can guess what they were doing. So again, they stole the ballots. We have no idea what else they stole. We may be reeling from that for the next couple of elections. I'm sure they were messing with the machines because Georgia votes on machines. In Virginia, we vote on paper. Now, it's true, we run the paper through scanners, but we have to keep the ballot images as long as we keep the original scanned documents, so we can always go back and compare. So they were after something, and again, they did not tell us what they stole or what they tried to mess up, and they never will.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we had Tulsi Gabbard there to make sure everything went smooth. Susie in LA, are they talking in California? We've had a lot of issues with voting in California. Did they deal at all with voting issues at the Democratic convention in California, the Democrats?
Yeah, so Shirley Weber actually talks about these, voting rights and voting issues a lot here. And she was there talking about that in the Black Caucus. She wasn't, on the main stage or anything. But yeah, I mean, this is a concern. I mean, if you have, a federal government willing to, raid voting places, and I mean, with the Trump administration, this is how it always is, right? There's like a little pilot program that they run to see how they can get away with it, like what the pushback is, what's going to happen here. And so, these are like little pilot projects that they put out there, and then, we see kind of when they do like the full assault. Um, but I mean, they're taking over the country. They're lawless. They're taking over the country. They've made it very clear. It's like Trump has said multiple times, like, when I say that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And for some reason, people keep not believing it. Please believe it. We have to have in this country a way to push back on these things, because I mean, right now it's to go through the courts, although we all know that anything that makes it to the Supreme Court, it's going to be a tough gig for us. Um, but we have to have a way to push back, and that's going to have to happen, on the ground at local polling places. It's going to have to happen, statewide. But where we are falling down right now is not like laws and legislation. Obviously, we need to pass that in anywhere that we have a Democratic majority for sure. But where we're falling down is in how to enforce this, right? How do we stop this, and how do we enforce it? Because they're not looking at the laws. They're just looking at how they can win. And we're seeing them test the waters and getting away with a lot.
Susie, can you turn your camera on, please? So we
Oh
can
no,
put you on the
I
screen?
can't. I'll
Okay,
Okay,
that's fine
I'm
if you
sorry,
can't.
it won't work because I don't have the
okay.
bandwidth right now. Sorry.
All right, we're
Okay.
good. No one will ever question your bandwidth, Susie Shannon. Lynn Feinerman?
Yes. Yeah. The elections are crazier and crazier, but I do have a bit of good news, actually, not regarding the elections, but close. Marin County, we have been pushing Marin County, California for ever to cease its cooperation with ICE in the form of SCAP, which is the Criminal Alien Assistance Program, whereby they basically do bounty hunting and get over $1 million every year for people whom they turn in to ICE. And we finally got some movement. And the the county executive has taken all SCAP funding off of the Marin County budget. So
Good. Good for
yeah,
you.
we're not done, but we're getting there.
Okay, and Susie, you and Lynn, I think, should know each other. Andrea, I think you've met Lynn. Lynn has a radio show, and she's a steady on the call. So,
And
good.
if I could just add to that, it's so important to get these laws passed, and so important, to make sure that that law enforcement is not working with ICE. But when it comes to voting, I just want to remind everyone that once they prevent someone from voting on election day, and I've only seen one instance where this hasn't been the case, there is no remedy for the individual voter. So that means once they turn you away from the polls, once they engage in intimidation, once they send ICE, once they say your name is not on the roster, however they're going to swing it on the ground, which is where we need to focus on, there is no remedy for the individual voter. They will not take that election over. You can have a lawsuit, and you can get, money from, I guess, not being able to vote or whatever, but it does not change the election itself.
Yeah, but
And that is a huge problem.
just try to take their gun away and see what happens. But take their vote
Yeah,
away, no problem,
right.
really.
Yeah, exactly. Lynn Feinerman, thank you for that. And Susie, thank you. Paul Newman, and then Sharice. Paul? Oh, I got to unmute you here.
Right. Can you hear me
Good.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. There's three points that I need to make. The first one is like LAPD, the budget for LAPD in Los Angeles is $3.2 billion. It's the highest, all the money goes to there, and also paying for liability. Okay. That's called an ecosystem. There are private industry is involved with that. The second thing, I call it ecosystem. When we say military industrial complex, it's an ecosystem. Okay. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is private prisons make a profit for no matter, anybody they get in there. I've heard it as high as $750 a day or $125 a day. This is part of an equal ecosystem which is being built. Anthony Weiner in our state senate said ICE cannot wear masks. Okay, that is not enough. That is not enough. They should go after the private prison. GeoCorp, Core Civic, Garda, which is a Canadian firm. Dilly in Texas is persecuting children. It's the private prisons. You get rid of the private prisons and make them go into the public prisons. I think that would be a huge problem solver. Okay. The other thing is in what there was a city, there was a restaurant that said, we're not serving ice here. So ICE showed up and blocked them from having business. Just think how they're going to be when they go to the voter rolls, you know,
Yeah.
and no, as Susie Shannon said, no recourse.
Right.
I mean, this is crazy. The Justice Department is not on our side. This, as we know, and I'm stating the obvious, is a coup. It's just orchestrated at the top using the legalese. Now, one last thing. When Trump wants to make when he does something unconstitutional, he says, we'll fight it in the Supreme Court, he sets up an emergency docket. So what happens is that emergency docket goes to the Supreme Court and then they hold it up, making it okay for whatever constitutional violations that are occurring go until they set a court date. And usually it's months down the line. It's like kicking the can down the line so they can violate the law and then they can rule. And I know private prisons have been here for decades, but it's a bad idea. Historically, as you know, Harvey Wasserman, that during the Gilded Age, they had private prisons and they were abolished because innocent people were getting picked up and incarcerated so they can make money.
Well, that was what the post-Civil War, reaction was all about, was taking the former slaves and turning them into slaves through the prison system. That was a very big part of it.
Right, but it was abolished.
Paul, you're always great. It's great to have
Thank
you on. Andrea Miller, we know you have to leave. Is there anything further you want to say about the SAVE Act and so forth?
Well, no. I've said everything. It's really in the Senate now. It's up to the Senate. You can write your senators. It's going to be interesting if they do something to pull something out of the air to make that work. I did put a link in the chat. Join me on Thursday night. I'm going to be talking about Virginia redistricting, where it is. In Virginia, when we deal with redistricting, it's drama, and then more drama. Right now, we are in the trauma phase. So I will be explaining to people what it's going to do. I have the new maps. I can show people where the new maps are. They are brilliantly drawn. I will say that. So, yes. So, where there are threats to voting coming at us constantly on all sides from the federal government. Oh, you're going to love the name of their newest SAVE Act, the mega bill, Make Elections Great Again, where not only do they require proof of citizenship and proof of residence in order to vote, to register, they would require both documents in order to vote. The mega bill also requires 30-day purges, and that would continue, and there would be no blackout period for the 90 days before an election. So the bills just keep getting worse, and as my mother would say, worser.
God, amazing.
Yeah.
Susie Shannon, we're almost to the top of the hour. Do you want to add to this from California? Susie, are you there? I guess Susie's gone. We'll come back to her if she's there. Andrea, it's mind-boggling. I can't imagine this is going to pass the Senate, but on the other hand, they won't let up. they'll just go find ways to do it extra legal, right?
Right. They just keep looking and for ways that they can push this through. Like I said, they tried a congressional vote. They wanted to do an executive order. The court said, get out of here with that. And then they tried the elections assistance commission. They tried to sneak it in there. So they are not going to give up because they know if people can vote, they will be voting against them.
Well, their survival is now on the line. I mean, obviously, all the polls, I mean, they're going to have $1 trillion. When you want to talk about perpetrators, we got to talk about Elon Musk, the Ellisons, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, the Google guys, the whole tech bro crew with hundreds of billions of dollars is not going to let go of this. This is where it all comes from. But how we stop it, Andrea, we're going to have to keep you coming, have you coming back, and we're going to have to deal with this because our survival is on the line here, quite clearly.
Right.
Everybody's counting on the
So
26th.
so again, sound electoral strategies protect the vote, but also turn out the vote. Now, remember, we just won an election in Virginia where the current governor won with 15 points. I mean, it was a great race. And she got the highest number of votes of any governor in the United States. She was 24,000 votes from 2 million votes. That's how big her margin was. We won 13 Virginia State House seats. So the Virginia State House is now 63 Dems to 36 Republicans. Virginia is looking like California of the South. We will be introducing a state-based universal health care bill in this upcoming session in 27. Virginia passed $15 an hour minimum wage. We also passed paid family leave and Sunday voting. So we are passing legislation all over the place. And now campaign finance bills are dying like there's no tomorrow. But yeah. And then, there's a quick thing in the chat. This AVAC does disadvantage Republican voters more, but they don't care because they don't care about Republican voters like they don't care about Democratic voters. So we will be going back to the Gilded Age where only the wealthy and the powerful can vote. So does it
we have to, this
color?
call, these sessions, and you are, of course, our touchstone on voting rights, Andrea. And between now and November, we have to find a way to protect the vote. That is number
Well,
one.
we
Of
have to
course,
turn it out too. We have to
Yes.
do both. There are two things, turn it out and protect it once it gets out. We
There-
have not been turning out the vote, which is why we lose elections. We lost Georgia in 24 because nobody turned out the black vote.
But ICE is clearly aimed at killing turnout. So it's a double-edged sword here. ICE is now clearly the touchstone of the MAGA election strategy. They know they're going to lose the popular vote.
Right.
People are so infuriated with Trump that the people will probably come out in record numbers. So ICE is the counter strategy. And that's what we're going to have to deal with for the next 10 months. Right? Okay. Here we are. Susie, I don't know if you've left us. Susie Shannon.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry I couldn't unmute earlier.
Okay, so
and
we're going to get you from California, and then we're going to go through the top of the hour for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll get into the energy issues, which we have a huge load to deal with. Roger Rappaport is with us, and Ellen Slavic and hopefully Susie Shannon and Carl Grossman. So we got a big one. But Susie, you want to give us a response to Andrea from California?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Andrea. I think the issue, so we have two things. One is, what are we doing regarding legislation and making sure that we're protecting people's rights? But the second issue, which I kind of already said, so I don't want to be repetitive, but our second issue is what happens on the ground between the individual voter and someone at a polling place, and what happens when they're denied their right to vote or intimidated or asked 2 blocks away, where they park, like if they have documentation. So we, on the ground is where we have to also be able to tell people how to push back. And I know a lot of places, they'll have lawyers who are standing by to kind of take the whole narrative of what happened to someone so that they can, fight this in the courts. But again, it's too late at that point because their vote just isn't counted and there's no remedy for that. So until we have an answer for how we get around this, obviously in California, if you have a home, if you have an address, and you can get a ballot that you can send in, and then, there's all kinds of questions about the counting of ballots, obviously, but if you don't have to go to a polling place, that's probably, one of the best ways at this point to get around some of this intimidation. But I'm just saying, we don't have an answer.
Well, we got
No
to come up
one,
with one. We've got
yeah,
we've got a few months, and by the end of these, by November, we have to have, by October, September, when early voting starts, we have to have an answer. We have
yeah.
to have an answer. And so Susie, you're with you've been with the Democratic Party in California and elsewhere nationally, and Andrea, you're at the heart of this issue. So we are pledged with two agenda items, as always, for the last 6 years on the GREEP calls: protect the vote and shut the nukes. And we're about to segue into shutting the nukes. Andrea, I think you have to go. It's been great. Stay with us if you can. Susie as well. I'm gonna get the questions answered, and then we got Roger Rappaport, Carl Grossman, and Susie. If you can, especially stay with us on the nuke issue, that would be great. Andrea, you don't deal with the nuke issue much, I know, but it's a big one in Virginia. If you can get the new governor to turn Virginia 100% solar, that would be a big deal. That would help.
He's working on it. Our folks, the people who work with us on clean energy, were some of the first people she brought into her cabinet.
Well, there's a huge revolution going on in renewables right now. The biggest issue, Nicole Young sent me something about this. The biggest thing we're facing, which is a snoozer in a way, is the transition of lithium-based batteries to sodium-based batteries. Now, I know that sounds like a snooze, but it's going to lower the cost of battery technology by somewhere between a factor of 10 and 100. And that changes everything. And so Roger has a report on the Nuke Palisades. We're really at the brink of dealing with this. And as the sign behind Milo shows, No King's Day, which is going to be a big deal, is on the anniversary of 3 Mile Island. So it's no kings, no nukes. Clear and simple. And Donald Trump has taken over the regulation of nuclear power plants in this country. If that's not the most terrifying sentence you've ever heard, I don't know what is. Every nuclear power plant in this country is now personally regulated by Donald Trump. So there you go. In other words, not at all. Andrea, thank you. Susie, stay with us. Andrea, if you can, stay with us. But keep coming back now, at least every other week. We have got to have a solution to protecting the 26th election in this fall. And Susie, you said it, and Andrea, you said it. It's legislation is important. Stopping the SAVE Act is important, but this is going to be on the ground, as Steve Bannon has made clear. And they may not have enough ICE agents for every polling station in the country, but they're certainly going to have enough for the ones that are really going to swing the election.
Harvey, I
Especially,
mean, Sonny, can I just jump in to say that the term, unfortunately, the term clean energy has been co-opted by the nuclear power industry and all of the people who are pushing nukes. So we have to make sure that when we say clean energy, we also say safe, clean, safe energy.
well, non-nuclear, non-fossil. I mean, fossil.
Right, but clean, as I said, it's been adopted by the nuclear power industry and people
Right.
who promote nuclear powers. I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Caris, Nicole, David Sonnenborn, and then we're going to Roger Rappaport and jump into the nuclear issue. I hope Susie Shannon joins with us. Susie, thank you if you have to leave, but if you stay with us, that'd be great. And Andrea, you're always fabulous. It's always great to have you. Charisse, go ahead. Oh, Andrea, there. Do you want to say something further, Andrea? Okay, so, Andrea's gone, and I don't know if Susie's still with us. Also, we have Ellen Slavic with us. Great to have you, and I'm going to call on you to talk about your show in East LA, or east of LA. Charisse, go ahead. Sebastian.
Okay, a couple of things. One, adding to the voter suppression effort, you have inner city residents, either older people who are retired or they're ethnic. They no longer have driver's licenses. They're registered to vote, but they live in the neighborhood, they work in the neighborhood, that is their entire world. Their driver's license expired a long time ago. So they're registered, but they don't need them anymore. That neighborhood is their entire world. And for them to, and they're typically in low paid jobs, for them to have to take hours or even a day off to go to get a new driver's license in order to be able to vote is just, it's a monumental hardship and a huge waste of time.
And they know exactly what they're doing, and Charisse, we appreciate that. You're
And
100% right.
also, Trump has been ranting about Canada stealing aluminum production. Well, the United States only has 4 aluminum smelters versus Canada's 9. The reason why? Because the electrical grid in this country is decrepit. Now, Biden passed the infrastructure bill, which was part of it was targeted at upgrading the electrical grid to support large consuming industries like aluminum smelting, data centers, high-tech production. But Trump has been working overtime to try and shoot all that down
Wow,
because he doesn't
amazing.
know how to negotiate. His one attempt at bringing in business during his first term was the Foxconn manufacturing plant in Wisconsin, which failed miserably.
Well,
That's
yeah,
that's
I
my
think
opinion is that's why he does tariffs because he doesn't know how to he doesn't understand how to negotiate.
well, his problem is he doesn't speak Canadian. Nicole, you sent me, and then we're going to go to Roger Rappaport. David, if you can hold on for a while, because Roger has been waiting in. But Nicole, you sent me a great piece on battery technology. Did you have anything else to say before we go to Roger?
Not about battery technology. Can I? The other day we listened to the people that work for the government in DC, and they found that the one of the best way to stop them is to get rid of Russell Rowe, because like he's like in charge of OMB. That's where the money and everything is, and
Right.
he's the most dangerous. If he's the most impeachable of all of them, and if it's kind of like if he were a doctor and the United States was a patient, he would be sued for
Well,
malpractice.
if he was the doctor and we were the patient, we'd all be dead. So,
We'd be dead.
Nicole,
And
thank you for that. And come back. We're going to jump into energy now. See, Ellen, how do we pronounce your name?
Ellen Slavic.
Ellen, Ellen has for those of us in LA, Ellen has a an art exhibit coming up at Pitzer College, which is east of town. And then, Ellen, if you could put that in the chat, and then we're going to come to you, that would be great. Okay?
Yep, I'm gonna put it in the chat now.
Please.
And it's already up at Pitzer College, and it's up until April 4th.
Wonderful, wonderful. Everybody take a look. We'll come back and talk about it with Ellen. But we want to get to Roger Rappaport, who is, how many feet of snow do you have there, Roger?
I'm sorry?
How many feet of snow do you have?
We have about 1 inch right now. It's pretty much melted.
All right.
We didn't get hit by the disaster on the East
Okay,
Coast.
but the disaster you are being hit by is a few miles from your house, the Palisades reactor.
Okay.
And
So there may be a couple people. Yeah, there may be a couple of people here today who have not heard of Michigan's Palisades nuclear plant. And for those of you, I'm going to give you a primer. So what happened was that in 1972, almost 55 years ago, a plant was built by Bechtel that does not meet current standards. It could not be built today anywhere in the world. But both the original builder who sued the company that built it, Consumers Energy, and they had a big settlement on that. And then the subsequent owner, a very large nuclear fleet operator, Holtec, has spent the better part of half a century trying to make this plant work. And it's been an albatross, which finally reached the point 4 years ago where basically Energy decided to give up because of both safety and economic reasons. And it was bought for decommissioning by Holtec International, which has never operated a nuclear power plant. And they have spent 4 years trying with billions of dollars in grants and subsidies and other support from both the state and federal governments to try to get this plant to work. It was supposed to reopen almost 2 years ago. It didn't. There have been a continuing series of delays. And now it turns out that the new problems relating to a series of difficulties on two obsolete parts of the plant. One, the two steam generators, which would cost about $500 million to replace, and the reactor pressure vessel head, containment head, the top of the reactor, which would cost about another $750 million to replace. Both don't really work. So Holtec's solution has been to resleeve an unprecedented 1,400 tubes in the steam generator. And now they're trying to explain why the welding work that they did to try to get the pressure vessel containment head, closure head don't work. And in the process, they've revealed a number of things. Number one, that they didn't meet federal standards, which are created by the American Society of Metallurgical Engineers, ASME, and the NRC. They didn't meet their welding standards. So because of all these problems and the fact that they somehow can't find the documentation for the work that they've done, they now face up to 5 years of further delays and another up to $1.25 billion to try to get this plant to work. Everybody who knows anything about this, and there are a number of people in this Zoom call who can elaborate, Harvey's one of them, will explain to you that there's only one reason why Holtec, actually two reasons why this plant is not working out. One is that Holtec International has tried to literally defy gravity, in effect, by trying to get this plant to work when two companies, one of the most experienced nuclear operators in the world, failed, and the other one basically bailed out. There's no economic rationale for this plant. It's been clearly established that nuclear, number one, is not clean energy, and number two, it's far, far more expensive, particularly in this case, where the subsidies could run up to about $7 billion. And the subsidies are at every level, not just in terms of restarting, but also in terms of subsidizing the rate for it. So why is everybody in such a mad rush to try to reopen this plant? The answer is really quite simple. this category of light water reactors has been a dismal failure economically. In fact, in this century, only 2 reactors have actually opened, both in Georgia, that have boosted energy rates. They were more than $7 billion over the original estimated cost, and they came in, I think, 6 or 7 years late. So this has documented the fact that this type of reactor, which can take up to 15 to 20 years to build, is not the solution to the energy problems that were discussed a little bit earlier. And even more to the point, to make it even more dramatic, unlike wind and solar and other renewables, which can come up in a year or two, this plant has incredible safety risks, not only in the fuel cycle, but also in the fact that the radiation that it creates has to be stored in casks on the shore of Lake Michigan. So there's, number one, not a safety argument for it. There's not an economic argument for it. The people trying to build it, who get it to restart, have essentially, with zero experience, have had delay after delay after delay. They can't find the necessary documentation. They can't meet federal standards. So why are we even having this conversation? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic governor of the state of Michigan, who, with her predecessor, decided that it would be a great idea to reopen this plant to create a few hundred jobs. So she got the support of Joe Biden, and now she has the support of Donald Trump, who, as Harvey has pointed out, not only regulates nuclear power. Last week, he actually had I believe, a reactor flown on an Air Force plane, a jet, a small reactor, flown 600 miles because he's in such a hurry to get these small reactors going by 4th of July. And the other key person in this effort is none other than Pete Hegseth, who is going to be opening more reactors on military bases. So we have, number one, Donald Trump, and number two, we have Pete Hegseth. And then we have a whole group, if you can believe it, of Democratic governors who are marching in together with these Republican leaders to get these plants reopened. And there's only one reason why all this is happening. And the reason is that both sides of the political spectrum have been completely bought off and, I would say, corrupted by a series of lies, beginning with the fact that nuclear power is clean energy when we know that it isn't. And just to give you an example, these small modular reactors that they're talking about, in effect, and there's many, many of them that are being created, including by the Trump family itself, the principal source of the highly enriched uranium that is going to power these plants today. There's only one country in the world where you can obtain this highly enriched uranium. It happens to be Russia. So we have Vladimir Putin supplying the uranium to Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth to open these plants that can't even begin to compete with renewables that are taking over countries all over the world, like Germany. So why is this happening? Why is this all going the wrong way? The reason is that the energy industry believes that they can make a fortune through this new generation of reactors that they don't have to meet any standards whatsoever. And it's a field day on Wall Street, meaning people like Donald Trump and his own family can do IPOs, and Holtec is another company in this category, that are going to raise billions of dollars because of the hysteria created all over the country over these data centers that, of course, need power right away, and they don't want to wait, and they don't want to deal with renewables. So they floated this myth that somehow these SMRs, which even the right-wing conservative Cato Foundation has, it's the science is just not there, and and so on. So there's an irrefutable argument. Holtec is leading the charge that we are going to get, if you can believe this, according to Kevin Camps, bless his heart, who's been following this Palisades reactor for 30 years, they're going to get up to 15 or $16 billion in government subsidies, no risk on their part at all, to not only rebuild Palisades, but also build 4 more reactors at the Palisades site and another site of a reactor that no longer exists in Charlevoix.
Okay.
So the answer to all of this, in my mind, is really literally comes down to one thing. This election, the one we've been talking about for the last hour, is going to come down in the end, in the next 3 to 4 years, the next 2 elections are going to come down to one critical Achilles heel. And it's going to be somewhere, we don't know where, there's going to be a mistake made. And that mistake is going to completely transform this conversation because, believe it or not, nobody likes to have a nuclear accident. We've seen this over and over again. We saw it at Chernobyl. We saw it at 3 Mile Island. We saw it in Fukushima. And every time it happens, there's this mad rush in the case of Japan, for example, where they took down a whole bunch of reactors and so on. And then they wait for things to kind of quiet down until it's like an earthquake, until there's another disaster. There is no question that the path that Trump is pursuing in the near future is going to lead to some kind of a nuclear reckoning. And I liken it to the Boeing Max, where Boeing did an end run around the FAA. They shortchanged. They got waivers, just like Holtec is getting right now. And they said, we can get this done. We can self-police ourselves. We can build a self-plane. And the FAA is saying, so what about this one little safety thing? Oh, no, we've got that under control. It only took 2 crashes to shut down that entire line of production for a year and a half. And I'm telling you now, and Boeing was in huge trouble, financially. I'm telling you now that if Trump pursues the path he's on, we're going to have some kind of an accident. Hopefully not too bad, but enough for people to start saying to themselves, maybe nuclear is not quite as quick, safe, and cheap as we thought. And I believe that what I'm saying right now is the beginning of the end of not only the Trump regime, but potentially all the leadership in the nuclear industry, because there's no way out for them because they've dug basically their own hole. This is almost an inevitable result. Now,
Roger,
let's hope not. Let's hope that's not the case, Roger.
Yeah, okay.
Let me say, first, Roger has done incredible work on this. Let me summarize. We've got Carl. We've got Susan Shapiro.
That's fine.
We got SUSIE Shannon from California. Let me give a quick overview of exactly where we're at.
Yeah, okay.
First of all, Donald Trump has made himself the king of nuclear regulation.
Right.
Any idea of any independent nuclear regulation in the United States has been killed. Steve was kind enough to post my article about that at freepress.org.
Right.
And the bottom line is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been gutted. Second, the situation at Palisades is the headpin here. Palisades is a shut reactor. There are a number of them in the key that the industry wants to open, but they're starting with Palisades. Roger has unearthed a document where Holtec, this mob operation out of New Jersey that wants to reopen Palisades and Indian Point in New York. We have Susan Shapiro with us. And they can't even find the documents that are relevant to the welding, but they at Indian Point, which is critical, and at Palisades. But what kind of company can operate a nuclear power plant that can't even find the most basic documents? So the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is completely on the spot here. Trump is the only president in the history of the United States to fire a chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. In other words, there is no independent regulation going on, and Trump has personally bought in to the nuclear industry. He's personally invested in nuclear power, and he's dominating the regulation. So when we go to No King's Day on March 28th, that is the 47th anniversary of 3 Mile Island. So it's no kings, no nukes. We have that preliminary thing there, the illustration, the cartoon. So we with Roger's article should break open the whole discussion on reopening the old nuclear plants, which includes 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania, and Dwayne Arnold in Iowa, and they're talking about new reactors at Indian Point in New York, and all the Democratic governors, the worst of them being Gavin Newsom in California. All the Democratic governors are supporting this new industry, which is the solely regulated by Donald Trump. At Indian Point, at Diablo Canyon in California, the governor Jerry Brown did a master plan, which was endorsed by everybody, signed on in 2018 to shut Diablo Canyon, the 2 reactors, and take the state 100% renewable, which could have been done by now. Diablo Canyon was supposed to be shut in 24 and 25. And Gavin Newsom is the great criminal here, the great Democratic white hope, to have sold us down the river on nuclear power. And he has got to be stopped. Susie Shannon, Paul Newman, the rest of us in California, this has to be stopped. And the Democratic governor's compliance in this is absolutely critical. Now, Carl Grossman and Susie Shapiro are both in California and have pointed out that Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, who's going to be reelected, has been completely compliant in this. And so Susan Shapiro, who's actually my cousin, and by the way, I want to say hi to Kathy Wolf from the Clamshell Alliance. Kathy, it's great to see you. My buddy Dave Saltman is with us. Tatanka Bricka, who lives closer than any of us actually to Diablo Canyon. But Susie Shapiro, can you tell us very quickly about Kathy Hochul and Indian Point, and then we'll go to Carl, and then we'll come back to discuss more about Palisades. I cannot overstate the importance of Palisades and the importance of what Roger Rappaport has unearthed here. This could kill the attempt to restart these old reactors. Because what Roger has shown is this memo from Holtec, and that's why we're devoting so much time. This is the only place in the country where this discussion is being had. We have sufficient evidence in what Roger has unearthed to kill any sane attempt to restart Palisades. It's ridiculous that Holtec, it's the Keystone Cops. And they're also working at Indian Point. Susie Shapiro and Carl, can you tell us what's going on in Indian Point and connect the dots between Palisades and Holtec and Indian Point?
Well, to be honest, right now, they're not talking about anything restarting Indian Point. They're decommissioning it and taking it apart.
Yes.
But going to the problem of not having records, when Indian Point was open, they did not have, we were trying to get information about wiring, pipes, and actually the structure, how it had been built. And they didn't have the plans. They didn't have what they call as-builts of anything, because it was a hodgepodge. All their documents, I'm sure that's what you're finding at Palisades. It's a hodgepodge of documents, and they were not filed properly, and no one actually knew how the structure was built. It was causing a lot of internal structural problems. And what happened at Indian Point towards the end was that it turned out that the baffle bolts inside the reactor vessel head had corroded to such a point that they couldn't find some of them. Many of them were missing.
You've mentioned that before. These bolts in the nuclear plant essentially disappeared because of the radiation, the hot water, whatever. But critical pieces of the structure of 2 atomic reactors operating 35 miles from Manhattan, these bolts disappeared. Is that right, Susan?
Yeah, so they couldn't find some of them. They am I still on? Yeah, there you go. So the baffle bolts that held the baffles together inside the reactor, which are critical parts of the reactor vessel head, had corroded to crumbs, basically, and they were missing. So
And Susie Shannon, by the way, in California, and Tatanka, this has happened at Diablo Canyon too.
I'm sure it's a chronic problem throughout the country. We've been trying to get them to do an autopsy of Indian Point as they're undoing it, which every reactor that's being decommissioned, there should be an autopsy on what radiation does to steel and concrete, because we don't know. I mean, it's a new science, nuclear, relatively. And so here is epidemiological knowledge that they're not doing that. They're not doing any kind of look at to what kind of corrosion, autopsy, whatever you want to call it, has already occurred. They're just getting rid of stuff. So that knowledge will go away as well. With regard to Kathy Hochul, I have to say, I think she's probably worse than Gavin Newsom because what she's doing in New York State is New York State already gave $7.6 billion to nuclear in 2016 and only gave renewables $1 billion as part of their zero emissions credit program, which means that they've been naming nuclear as zero emissions. This is the greenwashing of nuclear, which was being spoken about earlier. And it's really crucial that we talk about this because that's how they're getting the money. They're basically taking public funds and giving it to nuclear. And then they say, well, renewables didn't come online fast enough. Well, they're not funding renewables even to the same level as keeping old nukes open. And now, just a few weeks ago, Kathy Hochul and the Public Service Commission, that is her arm of the administrative arm, gave $33 billion more to nuclear to keep us locked into nuclear until the next 30 years. And they're talking about giving another $100 billion. And it's all based on this false claim that nuclear is zero emissions and that we need it for AI, and this desperate push that we need nuclear for AI. I was at a candidate forum the other day with a new Democratic candidate who in many ways looked like a great candidate, except on her stance on nuclear. And I think it's really important we vet candidates, because I asked her about nuclear and she said, well, we'll never open Indian Point, but we need nuclear for the climate change situation. And I said, what about the waste? And her answer is what shocked me. She said, well, AI will figure it out.
Oh, God.
And that's the scary thing, because AI is not going to figure out something that's geologically and physically impossible. It's just, and that weird trust that, AI is going to figure it out. And so we have to keep building nuclear to figure out what to do with the waste of nuclear. So it's a dangerous place. But
well, Grossman, you're in Long Island, near Susan. And then Susie Shannon, are you still with us? I want to come back to you and the Democrats in California if you're still here.
Susie's gone, I think.
Okay, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, it's quite a scene in New York. Just what Susan has spoken about, the $33 billion, and that's to be paid by ratepayers throughout the state. You add that $33 billion to what Susan just mentioned, the earlier $7.6 billion bailout, and this is for 4 old nuclear power plants upstate, including the oldest nuclear plant in operation in the U.S. Well, Hochul has declared publicly that I embrace nuclear power, whether it's money or she's taken a big drink of the nuclear Kool-Aid. She is pushing, she wants to have the state of New York become the center, the national center of a nuclear revival in the United States. And she's a Democrat.
It's insane. Susie Shannon, I want to get you unmuted here.
I just want to add something about what part of why Hochul and the Democrats are so pro-nuclear is obviously the funding, but we have to remember Andrew Cuomo. His whole entire he's working for the nuclear industry now directly, and so his entire campaign for mayor of New York City was funded by the nuclear industry, and that's why Hochul, I believe, is so pro-nuclear. And they're basically the same candidate.
So Susie Shannon here in California, do you have an answer for why Gavin Newsom turned to Satan here and is supporting nuclear, and what we can do within the Democratic Party?
Well, he has just gone back on almost every campaign promise that he's made, but he is not Yeah, he is not your friend. So unfortunately, you are not going to get any love from the California Democratic Party either. Over the weekend, they passed a platform. In that platform, in their draft platform, they took out protections for underserved communities of color, the LGBTQ community, the Native American community, and they gutted the environmental and energy plank of the platform. Now, we had created, me and Larry Gross, a number of other people, and Dorothy Reich was part of organizing all of this. We created a petition, and in that petition, it said to put back language on for underserved people of color to have access to capital, for LGBTQ rights in the military. They had taken that out. Just egregious cuts for the rights of people. But in the gutting of the energy and environment plank, they took out they took out our ban on fracking, our ban on plastics, although we did get that back, and they took out a whole section on nuclear energy. So this is what they took out, and this is what remains taken out. We had in there in 2024 urge Congress, the California legislature, the California Public Utilities Commission, and the California Energy Commission to ensure the safety and thoroughly evaluate the full cycle costs of nuclear power, phase out all reactors, decommission, and withhold funds for license renewal for Mark I nuclear reactors, which cannot be made safe, ensure the safe storage of nuclear waste, and ensure that operations provide emergency plans and provide adequate liability protection for populations within 50 miles of reactors. That now is gone from our platform. We put that in our petition. The Environmental Caucus basically said they wanted to negotiate all of the energy and environment plank stuff. They did not agree with us on the nuclear in terms of keeping that in. We made that point. So when we were able, there was so much organizing happening, but we had legislators who were just a no on the platform, particularly the ones who, like Maxine Waters, are protecting our communities of color, people like Assembly Member Rick Chavez-Zabur, who is, LGBT and basically looks at the rights of our LGBTQ community. And so we had all of this in the petition. We got an agreement from the platform committee to put everything back in because we had organized so well that we had a no vote on the floor. The only thing that we were kept from organizing around was the energy and environment plank, which was on the Environmental Caucus. And the Environmental Caucus said they would only organize around 3 issues: putting plastics back, having moving our public utilities from private to public, and having I guess onshore extraction, I think, was the third one, because they had put in a ban on fracking. So there was no organizing at all other than our petition around nuclear energy. We actually had a few people tell us that if we took nuclear energy, putting this language back for protections and decommissioning nuclear reactors, that if we took that out, they would sign our petition, but they wouldn't sign it if we had it in. So I'm just saying this because there needs to be an entire re-education effort, because if even like the chair of the Environmental Caucus wouldn't advocate for this, really it was Jeff Coritzen, who is a regional director, who brought this to my attention and to Larry Gross's attention, and so we put it in this petition. But if you don't even have the Environmental Caucus willing to advocate on behalf of keeping this language in a platform, and these are supposed to be the stewards for us for all of these issues, it just signals huge problems here. And it is all about AI. It is about the data centers. It is about the fact that, people are capitulating on all of this, and it's coming, it's like the fish rots from the head. It's coming from, the non-leadership, I guess, of our governor, and it's trickling all the way down into even the environmental caucus of the California Democratic Party. So it requires a whole re-education effort. People
Well,
have to be schooled on this. There's no discussion of it. There's total, like I said, like people wouldn't even sign the petition with the
okay.
nuclear energy piece put in
Well, I
the
think maybe
into
the
it.
way, Susie, and tell me if I'm off here, but maybe the way to organize going forward is around solar and organize in favor of solar and in favor of wind. And with Nicole sent out a piece of more battery technology. I mean, the solar industry around the world is just making huge leaps forward. And California, we lost thousands of jobs with Newsom's attack on solar. So maybe if we can make solar the focus, maybe that would help.
Well, I think people would agree, with solar, wind, and all the renewable technologies, but they want nuclear as well. So it's all, you know what I mean? It's like
Well, I
it's
think what we're
not
going
going
to
to replace it.
what I think we're going to see with this Palisades fight, and also, the Cato Institute has come out and said the nuclear won't work. And if you look at the numbers for solar and wind with the new battery technologies, it's not even close. I mean, the numbers are so heavily in favor of Solartopian energy that it's not even an argument. Literally, new nuclear is now coming in estimates at 300% of new solar. It's not even close. So maybe that's the route we have to take. And California especially. I mean, I had a contract to solarize my house, and the company went bankrupt because of Newsom. And that's happened all over the state. Maybe we can, I'm just hoping, Susie, maybe we can shift gears a little and focus on solar. Maybe that would work, especially in California. Something to think about. Are they done? Are they done with their platform?
Yep, the platform's done and it's not in there. So all of that
By the
has
way,
been taken
I want
out.
to acknowledge, I told you coming on to say we were going to discuss homelessness, and obviously we'll have to wait for another week and have you back
Yeah,
to talk about
that's
that,
fine.
please. Ellen Slavic, you're here in LA. Tell us what you got, please.
Well, I wanted to say two things that aren't related to the show. First of all, my husband, David Richardson, some of you might know, he's an epidemiologist, and he was in charge of the 10-year report on radiation for the United Nations. And the US was the only country that abstained in voting. They abstained from voting, but it did pass, which was miraculous. He didn't think it would. He had spent 10 years on it. But Trump,
Put a link to that study if you would into the.
I don't have it, but I can do it. I can get it to you another time. I don't have one right now.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
think it's
Yeah.
a huge, like hundreds of pages. But anyway, the Trump administration, and basically the study says that there's no safe threshold for exposure, right? That low threshold, the threshold is any exposure is dangerous.
As they say, say to your husband, please, thank you for your service.
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I thank him all the time. But Trump has said they're not going to pay attention to that. And when Trump officially said this, the UK and France both followed the US example, who both want fast track nuclear plants. So this is a global problem with our our country. It's just a mess. But then the second thing I wanted to say, just responding to what the last woman was saying about the education, there's this woman on SUSIE Shannon, the woman who's on city council here, Kathleen Tressiter. So my husband's working with the mayor of Irvine, Larry Agron, who wants to move the nuclear waste that's stored too close to the ocean edge at San Onofre, the closed plant. He wants to move it to the Camp Pendleton site to keep it safer. Oh. And it's a great idea. And even though it's not in Irvine, it's in the next county over. It's not in Orange County. I live in Irvine. But Kathleen Tressiter, who's an environmentalist and an activist, was there and was totally opposed to studying this, even though Southern California Edison, if that's what it's called, I'm sorry, I'm new to California, was there supporting this to move the waste from the shoreline to Camp Pendleton where it could be safer, because San Onofre isn't really safe.
This is a big other issue, Ellen, and we should get into this separately.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that.
But you have an exhibition at Irvine,
yes.
at Pitzer College, if you put the link up there.
Yeah, I did put the link. I'll put it again. But yeah, it's up
And
now. It's
Steve,
open.
you can show some of the artwork, but go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, it's open. It's up until April 4th. It's open Wednesday through Saturday, 1 to 4. And it's a really incredible show. It's 7 women artists. It's a show called Atomic Dragons by Swans, Slow War Against the Nuclear State. And there's 7 of us, and 3 of them are in their 80s. 2 of their fathers worked on the atomic bomb. One was probably murdered by the government. Another one worked on the first nuclear reactor. Another one's mother was had a red telephone in St. Louis. Whistleblowers called her for nuclear accident problems. I'm an anti-nuke activist. My husband, as I've already described him, works on exposure. And so it's a show in both the galleries at Pitzer, and it's all about nuclear issues. It's a very good show. And on April 4th,
I will come out there and we will make it something that can be shown in various ways. I'll work with you to show
that would be great. That would be great. I just want to let people know April 4th, there'll be a day-long symposium.
Okay, Ellen, and you should be in touch with SUSIE Shannon, who's a big, very active in the California Democratic Party. And here we have Myla Reese in here about to speak, who is in Santa Monica. And she'll probably come out to the show as well. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
We'll come out and maybe we can do something to put on Zoom from the show. That would be really cool. Okay, Myla Reese, and please, and then Avina Colley, and then Lynn Feinerman and Dave Saltman. Go ahead. And Dorothy Reich is with us. Hey, Dorothy.
I would love to come out for that show. And, I just wanted to circle back. Well, one thing, one of the problems with Camp Pendleton, although it is far from the ocean, the Marines at Camp Pendleton often practice all kinds of bombing exercises.
Okay.
So
all right,
idea that Sonny,
no, don't go into that now. Let's keep on the because this is a local issue we'll talk about later with her.
Are you talking to me right now, Harvey?
Yeah, Myla, please go
yeah,
now.
please. Let me just. I'm on a roll. Let me just quickly say what I'm going to say. I just wanted to circle back to the idea of inadequate record keeping that Roger Rappaport brought up and that Susan Shapiro brought up, because when the waste isolation pilot plant, which is the dump for plutonium contaminated nuclear weapons waste near the Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico failed and there was an explosion underground, we discovered that Los Alamos National Labs had not kept adequate records about what was actually in the room where the explosion occurred. Now, in order to reopen the facility, they had to come up with a story about the root cause of the accident. So they came up with this fantastic theory that the explosion was caused by kitty litter, and that really caught on. And now there are a lot of no nukes activists who actually have bought into that explanation, but it was just complete fabrication because they didn't know what was in the waste. So I just
right, and they never disclosed that the kitty litter was there.
Oh shit! I forgot. Birthday. I got a birthday party on Saturday. Shit.
Hey, somebody's speaking here.
That was Dorothy Reich.
Sorry.
Oh, Dorothy.
Yeah.
They never disclosed that at the Carlsbad nuclear waste site, they were actually keeping 10,000 cats. And that's why they had all the kitty litter there, and that's what caused the accident. Myla Reese, and you also should be in touch with Ellen here because she's in Irvine and very important. Dorothy Reich.
Yeah. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, go.
So the reason we're having problems with nuclear right now is because the chair who just resigned or is not going to be our chair anymore for the environmental caucus, R.L. Miller, is a big supporter of nuclear energy. She supports Brian Scharf. He supports these little baby nukes all over the place. So we have a new chair, a guy named Sam, and we're going to have to, Susie, you and I are going to have to get on him and try to explain the facts of life to him, introduce him to Harvey or something, and hopefully in 2 years we can get that back in. But we were working with a chair who is a big advocate of nuclear.
Oh, God. Well, thank you, Dorothy. Dorothy, for those of you who don't know, runs the Democratic Party of California. And
I wish.
he's a great activist with us. But I think that the key to winning this issue now is the incredible cost breakthroughs on solar, wind, and batteries. Because we're literally a third the cost for provable, rapidly deployable renewables as are with nukes. I mean, Roger, I mean, nobody, when they discuss restarting these reactors, and you've seen this also in New York, Carl and Susan, nobody talks about the money.
We're talking about the money, but the other thing is geothermal. I mean,
yes, geothermal.
Mark Jacobson from Stanford has put out, advanced geothermal, and regular geothermal is really what we need for AI centers. And the big issue is this: they're pushing AI, and we need nukes for AI, but that's not the answer for AI. The answer for AI is geothermal.
And also solar panels on the roofs, because those AI facilities have a tremendous amount of square footage on a single story. And if you put solar panels on their roofs, you will substantially serve their energy needs. I mean, look at those facilities. The data centers, are just for crypto. A lot of them are just, all about the fake currency. It's just a big scam. They're putting out this miraculous new technology that, oh, by the way, needs infinite amounts of energy, so we need to build nuclear. But the bottom line, again, I think, is with No King's Day coming up, and you can see the preliminary graphic, Donald Trump is the king of nuclear regulation. All nuclear regulation now goes through Donald Trump, personally. And they gutted the Nuclear Regulatory Commission with Doge. They got rid of 100 people. Trump has fired a chair of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission who happens to be from Western Michigan. And now this stuff with what Roger has unearthed about Palisades, we're seeing we've seen documents that can't be found. How can a company run a nuclear power plant if they can't even find their welding documents? I mean, really, it's insane. David Saltman, and then Lynn Fireman.
We've had Vina waiting for a long time.
Oh, Vina. Okay, Vina. Yeah, get Vina.
It's suffering through the actual nuclear accident in Piketon, the ongoing nuclear accident. So if you want to raise the flag about nuclear accidents, it's happening there with Vina. Thank you.
Vina, go ahead. And we understand, Vina, that Piketon is where, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger pointed out that the fuel for allegedly the small reactors, HEU, highly enriched uranium, is available now only from Russia. Are they talking about making it also at Piketon?
The high assay low enriched uranium has been processed in the centrifuge since 23. This fuel can be used to fuel the small modular reactors. The small modular reactors can be fueled to fuel the data centers. There's a $9 billion $9 million Piketon's going to get a gas power plant for $9 billion. Japan, Trump, and the higher reps are pushing this. We're in the mood of processing now. We need help now. We're getting stuff from Russia again in Piketon. We did that for 70 years without anybody's knowledge, and Russia sent their stuff here in 92 and contaminated the whole site. We have been reprocessing reactor fuel and stuff since the 70s, and they lied. And so now we're in production at the centrifuge, the high assay low enriched uranium, and it can be used fuel for the small modular reactors and also other stuff that I'm not aware of where it's going. But this $9 billion process that Trump and Japan deal and our Ohio reps is supposed to power a gas power plant. We don't know if it's going on Piketon or somewhere close, but they're trying to put in a 25-mile air radius. They've been trying to put these data centers all over the place here, and we've got a lot of community people that are I've been educating and telling them because they didn't know anything about the small modular reactors here at Piketon and the fuel that they were making. So
Okay.
everyone is being lied about Piketon. We need to get a national push to stop Piketon.
Okay, thank you. Piketon, of course, is in Southern Ohio. Vina Colley's been on the case for decades, and it's great to have you with us. And I love how they're going to build these giant energy facilities to power the facilities to make the uranium, so then they can build nuclear energy. You know, the net is below zero. It's insane. David Saltman, please, from upstate New York. There, David.
I salute all you experts on this subject who I've respected for many, many years. And I'm questioning, though, one thing. My question is, are we on the right battlefield here? And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is Holtec can't do anything that it's threatening to do, and it's done a lot of damage, but it can't make its own case without having an IPO. They're going public, and they're going public right now, as I understand it. Instead of trying to fight Donald Trump on his own turf, why don't we try to fight on the boardroom floor and all buy shares in Holtec and buy shares in Vanguard and buy shares in BlackRock, who are all going to be underwriting this IPO, and kill the thing for exactly all these reasons you've brought up, but do it as voting owners of the company.
Well, Roger, you want to speak to that? I mean, one of our thoughts about Roger's stuff, very good, David, thank you. One of our things about Roger's material is it should shake up the investor community. Roger, don't you think?
Yeah, David's absolutely right. And that's a perfect idea. And the other thing I think we need to talk about today that summarizes everything that's happening in this Zoom call is we are, like it or not, and I know some people will find this a little discouraging, we are now clearly in 25th Amendment territory at every level. And everything that's been said, and Harvey, you've been saying it, along with a lot of other people, is we're clearly in 25th Amendment territory. And all it's going to take to convince people that Kathy Hochul and Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and you know, everybody else who's on the wrong side, including my local assembly member, is one minor accident. And Carl's right here. Carl, what are the odds that one of these plants that we've been talking about today, including the million gallons of contaminated water that's about to go in the Hudson, there's going to be an accident somewhere, right? Carl, am I right?
Absolutely. It's inevitable, particularly extending this 9-mile point one plant that this $33 billion new bailout would provide. It's operated near 60 years. We're going to have it run another 20 years, 80 years. Imagine going on an interstate with an 80-year-old car and its mechanics. We're asking for a catastrophe. And it isn't we asking for a catastrophe, but the powers that be, so-called, are just begging for disaster.
But just to give you a small example of what's going on, and Harvey's done some work on this, in France years ago, when they had this accident at Davis-Besse, they tried to look at their reactor heads, and they figured out there was no way to redo the welds. And what's happened with Holtec is they went ahead and did welds over bad welds to begin with. And not only can they not go in and look at the original welds that weren't right to begin with, but they don't have the paperwork on the old welds or the new welds. And the bad welds at these highly pressurized reactors, I mean, the possibility, God forbid something goes wrong, is almost inevitable because, as Harvey's pointed out again and again, there's no regulation anymore. So all the plants that were being regulated, plus all the new plants that don't meet, go to the Cato Foundation, read what they have to say, or the Union of Concerned Scientists. So the possibility of an accident of some kind is almost inevitable. And that's why I think we're in 25th Amendment territory. So I would agree with Dave. We need to buy shares in these companies. I think that's a brilliant idea, and tell the shareholders what the risks are to these companies. And remember, this is really important. Holtec has no skin in the game. They're not investing any of their own money. They're investing our money, our state money, our federal money into these plants. If something goes wrong, they are not going to pay for it. Okay.
Right. That's why the billionaires, the Epstein billionaire
Right.
class loves nuclear power because they don't have to put any of their own money into it.
Right.
People ask me, I've got a close friend who's a big market guy. I tell him how much more expensive nuclear is than solar. And he says, well, that can't be because they're in it for the money. If it wasn't cheaper, they wouldn't do it. It's not their own money. It's the
Right.
public money. And they have no insurance liability.
Right.
And Ron Leonard's on the phone. And we're going to go till 4:20, by the way. It's 4 o'clock California time. So 4:20 is our toke-up time. So we'll get there. But Ron Leonard, if you're there, I have this fantasy of getting to Bad Bunny and saying, Mr. Bunny, why don't you do a benefit concert to put solar panels, completely solarize Puerto Rico? That would completely change the nature of the whole game, and they'd never be blown apart by another hurricane. And I saw a big piece. Cuba is in really serious shape now because they have no energy. They were getting the oil from Venezuela, and they are just flat out. And if Cuba could quickly somehow get solarized, that would change the whole nature of the whole energy picture. Ron Leonard's a godfather of the solar industry, and and he can tell us what the costs are like because that's the solution for California as well. The other piece of the master plan that Jerry Brown approved in 2018 to phase out Diablo Canyon by 24 and 25. The other piece was 100% transition to renewables, which has been completely taken to the next level by the advances in battery technology. They can no longer say, well, what do you do when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow? We know now the batteries, and if we can get past lithium, which is a major problem, it's over for the nuclear power industry. The dollars make absolutely no sense. And we've posted the link to the Cato piece. And now that Donald Trump is the king of nuclear regulation, I can't imagine any investor continuing. Steve Caruso, did you want to say something?
There's a company out that's now building transformers in a solid state fashion, which means they don't have the wire coils inside. Okay. How much is that going to save in terms of mining, copper, et cetera, et cetera? And they already building a plant. I think it's they would cover like half of Texas's energy needs with what they're doing in a year.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Steve. We now have a situation where, in the daytime in California, electricity is too cheap to meter. It's coming out of the Central Valley from solar panels in enormous quantities that just go into battery for the night. And in Texas, we said this before, in West Texas at night, they don't even charge for electricity off the wind power grid. Ron Leonard, are you still with us, Ron Leonard? So the key to this whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, and here we have Tesla is, Elon Musk has made such a mess of his car company. I mean, they can't even begin to compete with BYD and the other Chinese cars. But apparently Elon Musk is going back into the solar panel industry business. Ron Leonard, are you with us? If not, we'll proceed to talk further about that. No? Okay, so what's this, Steve, you got up here? This is a piece on the batteries.
Yeah,
okay,
the transformers.
So Roger, as you're doing your and Susan Shannon, Susan Shapiro, and Carl, we're going to write together on this, I hope. We really need to bring in the solar industry in a huge way because this is what kills the industry. They can't even begin to compete. And Roger, when your stuff starts to break now about all the foul ups at Palisades, and you can now correlate this with the lack of paperwork at Indian Point, Carl, at the other reactors in New York, at the fiasco at the French industry, and the fiasco at Davis-Besse, we should be able to scare off any independent money, private money from coming into the Holtec IPO, don't you think? Roger, don't you think that would have that impact, Dave Saltman? You guys there?
Yeah, see, the problem is, Harvey, as long as they can milk the public cow. I mean, for decades now, Wall Street won't touch nuclear, but it's had no problem getting federal bailouts and state bailouts. And a key here is public education. Susan actually just made it. Well, like there's an article that I have online where I quote Susan Shapiro as talking about how most politicians have been paid off, and the key is public education, and that is what I think we need to focus on.
Okay, so well, that's a great point, Carl. So what about let's glom on, as it were, to the No King's Days market. It's March 28th. So it's about 5 weeks from now. March 28th, as we pointed out, is the 47th anniversary of the accident at 3 Mile Island, which was 4 a.m. March 28th, 1979. So no kings, no nukes. Am I overstepping my bounds here, or is that going to work? Tatanka, what do you think? Is that are we really going to be able to make that happen? Because Trump is now the king of nuclear regulation. Nobody who's employed at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission is going to step forward with any kind of safety concern without knowing that they're going to get fired immediately. And there's the Cato piece. Everybody needs to read this Cato piece. Thank you, Steve, for posting this. Steve Thomas. Anybody know Steve Thomas? We need to get to him. The Cato Institute is an extreme right-wing, pro-market, free market organization. It's been there, it's very old, it's been around for decades. This is a piece that basically says that the money, the numbers absolutely do not work for small modular reactors under any circumstance. He actually doesn't get to the renewables until the end. But the bottom line is we have a renewable industry that can now bang out renewable capacity, production capacity at 1/3 the cost of the best nuclear. It's not even close. So can we jump on to No Kings, No Nukes and make that our public education?
I agree that the money issue is clear and it's major, but I think we've lost the public the court of public approval on nuclear because they've bought the lie that nuclear is good for the environment. They've bought the lie that nuclear is zero emissions and that we need it as part of the climate change solution. And they don't understand that what nuclear emits. It emits heat, emits radionuclides, and it emits carbon. Radioactive carbon, right. CO2 and methane. And we have lost that. For years, I've been talking to Carl and others who understand this, but in terms of the court of public opinion, the anti-nuclear movement has not discussed that. All they want to talk about is the carbon footprint of building nuclear reactors. Yes, that's big, but it's lower than gas and coal and oil. But we're losing. We've lost that battle. So we have to re-educate everybody in the anti-nuclear movement to discuss it's not zero emissions. It's not carbon free. It's not part of the climate change solution. Because the money thing is absolutely clear, but we're not winning on that at this time because we've lost the public opinion. That's my opinion.
What if we definitively link nuclear safety to Donald Trump?
Unfortunately, that will only work
Doesn't
if
that
it's an
scare
accident.
doesn't that scare the hell out of everybody?
Only the people who are paying attention.
Well, there are going to be 10 million people marching on March 28th. Is that a pipe dream? I mean, am I whistling Dixie here?
People forget about nuclear accidents like almost immediately after they happen. After Fukushima, after 3 Mile Island, they're always downplayed. No one ever got killed officially. No one ever got hurt officially. And so they keep going. Most of the public doesn't understand this. The money is clear. The money is very clear that it's costing them dollars. You could look at Georgia, Vogel, and how much their electrical bills went up. But until they buy that nuclear is not good is not part of the climate change solution, we're stuck with nuclear on a public opinion level. And
So
most of the people
how
have
do
the
we
no
break
kings
it?
thing.
How do we break through?
We have to educate people.
How? What's the line? I mean, is March 28th our next opportunity? I mean, that's what hit me, but maybe I'm off base. I don't know. Anybody want to speak to that? Dave, Salty?
You're going to hate this, Harvey. You got to attack Joe Rogan for promoting it.
Yes.
You will get on the front page of every paper in the country overnight, and you'll have standing.
Well, somebody's got to get us to Joe Rogan.
You are the world's greatest authority on this subject.
Somebody's got to get us to him then. Somebody's got to get us to him.
What?
We got to get to him. Somebody's got to get to him. I don't have it.
You call him up. He's got an agent in L.A.
All right. Okay. What else? Okay. So I'll do my best.
He personally attacked you. He
did?
He dissed you. He
Oliver
showed your
Stone did.
picture.
I don't know about Joe Rogan.
He showed your picture and made you the bad guy.
Was this Joe Rogan or Oliver Stone?
The Oliver Stone piece.
Oh, yeah. All right, Salty, I'll take
you have standing. You have standing to fight him in a public forum, and you'll wipe the floor with him.
Well, Carl Grossman, you've got your own media. How do we get this out there? What's the key? How do we win? Salty, I totally appreciate that.
I'm just looking up. I believe I'll be there. Believe me, I'll break his knees if he comes close to me. Okay, I'll be there for you.
All right. Who's got the answer? How do we? Oh, we were agreed that educating the public is what's got to happen. How do we do it?
Well, I think a key, if not the key, has to do with just what Susan Shapiro is talking about. I mean, this renaissance is predicated on nuclear being clean, carbon-free, emission-free, and so forth. And Susan's stress, her emphasis, is that's a big lie, and that must be tackled. And I think it's important that it be fully tackled and be made a central issue in the challenge to nuclear power.
Okay. My agenda for this next month is to link us into the No King's Day March. And if I'm off base, please let me know. But that's what I want to talk about going forward. And I think if we can link nuclear safety to Donald Trump, that will help us. And the money will help us. The solar industry will help us. People love the solar industry. I mean, it's just, they're undersold. And I felt in the solar industry itself, I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why aren't they out there pushing their product? I mean, what's wrong here? Vina and then Tonkin, then we're basically out of time. Vina calling. I think, by the way, also that Roger's piece on the new Palisades, that really should turn some heads. This stuff is so egregious that I don't know how anybody's going to ignore it, especially in the financial community. Vina, then Tatanka, and then we're done.
Harvey, I'm working with the Veterans for Peace, and we're working with Chris Busby and Paul Mobley, and we're working on how to calculate our exposures, because all these years they've been not calculating our exposures right. And until we do that, and everyone in the scientific area starts signing on to what we're doing here, it's not never going to change. And the other thing that we can do also is get pictures of our children that are born in our community.
Vida, I don't know if you heard Susie Shannon or Shapiro earlier, but her husband is working on the radiation exposure levels. And I don't know, you guys can connect up Paul Mobley and the guy he's working with on those level assessments.
Yeah, Chris Busby, could you send us a link to that?
Yeah, it's actually Ellen here in
Oh,
LA.
it was Ellen, I'm sorry.
Mentioned that, but yes, that's good.
Sorry.
I'm going to meet her, so hopefully that'll be good.
Harvey, you really need to talk to Chris Busby and Paul Mobley on this. They are putting together a wonderful packet to try to help all of us who's been calculated wrong all these years. And unless we change the scientific community, we're not going to ever change anything.
Okay, I agree with you on that. Salty and then Tatanka.
One last question. Was, did you ever talk to Stuart Brand about this? Because when he went nuclear, that was my first indication that something was grotesquely wrong. What's the deal? Do you know?
Yeah, I actually debate. I think I debated him once. I think I said that that he had taken the brown acid at Woodstock.
He
and
did. You're totally right. But I'm wondering, is it worth trying to change his mind? He's not a stupid guy. I've known him for years.
All right, well, let's get to him. Absolutely, let's try.
I don't know.
Tatanka, Salty will do that. Absolutely, him and Joe Rogan. Okay. Tatanka and Mila, and then Carl, and then we're out of here. We got 3 minutes left.
I'll hold what I'm going to say until next week or the following, but
okay.
What I do want to say is we have all the information that is correct. We have the money trail. We're in an echo chamber here, and talking about the financiers get out, public education, no kings. There is a history here that I'm tracking down, and even involves Stuart Brand and how he got the idea and who he got the idea from. I haven't been able to reach the principles I'm trying to reach. They include people at Exxon, they include people at Royal Dutch Shell. But the main idea is that they had a 100-year plan, 125-year plan 50 years ago, and they've modified it just a little bit, but they're still on track to control the whole world's energy supply and to have the public foot the bill. And, the money is sloshing around like crazy, all the regulations removed, but it's a conscious plan from not just Donald Trump, it's from who bought him, which is big oil and extractive and the largest bidder, and now the tech people. But I think we can put something together. We have to get out of our own echo chamber and come up with great messaging and some metaphors to describe really what we're doing here and what we're at the effect of.
Great, Tatanka. Thank you. And let's start with No King's Day and no nukes, and we'll have 10 million people out in the streets. Maybe we can get it through there. Mila and then Carl, and then we're done.
Something to revisit in the future. Don Mosier, a script scientist who was instrumental in keeping San Onofre shut, presented a paper during a forum that we put on that showed that it was the lowest doses of radiation that actually triggered certain forms of breast cancer, not the high doses of radiation, but the low doses. So that's something we can talk about in the future.
Very good. Yes, we will. Thank you. Okay, Carl, you get the last piece here.
Oh, great. And again, just let me repeat. This is an article which is running in a lot of Long Island newspapers. I'll make it national once it's out all over Long Island. And it comes from a series of webinars focusing on this Hochul push for New York State to be this nuclear center, the bailout, the construction of 5 gigawatts of new nuclear power. And again, her big theme, and it isn't just her theme, this is the big excuse of the nuclear juggernaut now for a bunch of years is that nuclear is an answer to climate change. It's a huge lie, and it's key. Public education on that will divorce this misinformation that nuclear is an antidote, a solid publication that it's an antidote to climate change.
All right, and with that, I want to link nuclear power definitively to King Trump. And I think we can do that in a month. So let's think about that. You guys, this has been an amazing session. Still got 50 people with us. Everybody, you're fabulous. No nukes, no kings. And we'll be back in a week. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering, Mike Hersh, Maya Reeson, everybody, Tatanka. And let's get the show back on Pacifica, by the way. Ruth Strauss, your letter is fabulous. I think we should send it everywhere.